Welcome to the Built to Win podcast, a show about entrepreneurs, their journey, and how they turn their dreams into reality. Today, I have my man, the former voice of the Golden State Warriors, founder, CEO of Living Legends Group, and one of the master connectors that maybe I've ever met. My guy, Chuck Walton.
What's up,
My
Doc?
G, man.
What's up, Doc?
You got it, man. Appreciate you.
I get the great introductions, man.
Hey,
You
man.
got me feeling holy in this thing.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, that's how we do
We
it.
do it.
Man, I appreciate you for having me.
Yes. So the way that I start off always is I have a good understanding of where you are right now and what you have done.
Yeah.
But most of the people don't.
Yeah.
So let's rewind it all the way to the beginning. Where you from?
Man, so it's crazy. So I'm from Chicago. Ironically, a lot of people, I feel like, don't know, I actually was born in LA.
Okay.
And I lived out here until I was about 5. And then we moved to Chicago. My dad, he's in construction, engineer and stuff. So he, at the time, California was just as crazy, I guess, as it is now, financially and stuff. So he felt like if he moved back, to the crib, he could start his company, where he was born and raised and have success, in his backyard, which, took a little time, but he eventually made it. And so I went from Chicago to a junior college back home. Messed up my grades my last 2 years of high school, chasing the ladies and,
There you go.
Getting
It
crazy.
happens.
And then
Which one? Where'd you go?
I went to College of DuPage, just one of
Okay.
the biggest schools in the whole Midwest. But for me, it was, it made me battle tested, because the thing about JUCO, especially when you go somewhere like nearby home, it just felt like a 5th year or 6th year of high school, because everybody from the crib was there,
Yes.
all over the city. So, which was kind of frustrating for me, because it's like I'm seeing the same people. A lot of people
Trying to
doing
get
the same-
away.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to get away and better myself. And then also I'm battling with the fact that I kind of felt like a failure in a lot of ways, because I'm here. And like in my mind, I thought I was going to graduate and go to USC, which is still my dream school in a lot of ways to this day,
Yes.
But God had other plans. And God had a plan for me to end up at Howard University in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital.
Yes.
And God knows best, man. It's
Always.
like, if I had to do it over again, like SC still my favorite school, but man, there's no place like HU. It changed my life. It was an incredible experience and opportunity.
Outstanding. So let's talk about that a little bit. Unpack it. So going from DuPage
Yeah.
to Howard, going from the Shy,
Yeah.
which is one thing, and then going out to Howard, to Chocolate City. What was that like?
It wasn't as chocolate as I thought it would be, or like what I would hear about growing up. And I think anybody, my Howard compadres will tell you that, but it was definitely chocolate. It was cool. Growing up, I was always the person, believe it or not, that said I would never go to a black college, because I've always been, and I know I cracked the OJ joke and stuff. Like, I'm pro-black. I'm proud to be black,
Yeah,
but
of course.
but I've always been very diverse. And I've had a diverse, childhood and lifestyle. I'm just hungry for knowledge from
Everywhere.
everybody and everywhere. But then also, Chicago is a metropolitan area, right? Everything's
Yes.
fast. We come from the hustle. So in my mind, most black colleges that I would hear about growing up were like in like country type areas.
Yes.
Like, and so in my mind, that's slow. And like in my mind, I'm like, wow, like what we gonna do for fun? And I love a good time,
Yes.
So when I landed in DC, and me and my mother landed at Reagan Airport, and we got on the metro, and we got off at the Shaw Howard Metro stop, and I'll never forget when we got off, they had a bucket boy out there. We invented the bucket
Yeah.
boys. So I was like, okay. And then I started to see that chocolate and the vibe of just the city. And I didn't realize that DC was a
Like
city.
a real city. Exactly.
So I was like, okay. And then I got on campus, and I didn't see nothing but ladies. And then somebody told me the ratio was like 20 to 2 or something, women and men. So I was like, oh, at that point,
It's done.
Yeah, I was like, it's done. It was nothing to talk about. My mom was like, you see this building? I'm like, I don't need to see nothing else. Like, it's a city, it's a number of women. I'm gone.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it was great, because my passion and love for sports, it was the best move for me, because DC has the most colleges of, any place in the 50 states. And then just the sports culture there is just very rich. And I mean, like from the high school and even the little league level on to the colleges. And they've produced some incredible talent. Everything came through there at some point. You know, tennis tournaments with Serena and Venus that I got to work. When I was there, John Wall had just got drafted. He was the hottest thing ever doing the Dougie. At the time, the Commanders were the Redskins, and, you know, the RG3 Mania was going nuts, and Bryce Harper had just got there. So for me, it was just a sports. DC United. Ovechkin was with the hockey team, and so with the Capitals. So for me, as a guy that wanted to always have a career in sports, it literally was like being dropped into a sports heaven.
Yes.
So God knew, like that it was.
That was the greatest fit.
Yeah, and then the Howard Network is something that people tell you about a lot, like a fraternity or sorority, and that's a real thing. I mean, it's actually saved my life in my career a couple times. Like just the fact that I went to Howard.
Yes.
And that's nothing that I even thought about when I went there.
Yeah. I would say I would put Howard University as a HBCU akin to really, and maybe some people would fight this, but the Ivies.
They call us the Black Harvard.
Exactly.
Like
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I would really, really put that next to the Ivies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the education. I mean, it was just an incredible experience, and just to see so many beautiful people that look like you, coming from different backgrounds, but all Black excellence, and just the relationships. I mean, some of those people we're, thick as thieves to this day, my brothers and sisters, like it really, and it helped shape and mold me, as a young man, for society.
I dig it. So you talked about sports, and that was being the number one kind of driver as you were young and wanting to move forward in life. How did you get to that?
My dad. My dad is a ex-athlete himself and just a diehard sports fanatic. So my mom tells this story when I was 5 months old. He took me to the Rose Bowl to see, I think it was Michigan versus UCLA. And, she's like, it was a little chilly. LA gets chilly at night,
Yeah.
She's like, what are you doing? He's like, he carried me like a loaf of bread into the stadium. When I was born, he put the football in my crib and, things like that. So he's real well known in the city of Chicago, back from his playing days. And he played college ball at Wisconsin and finished up at Indiana State football. And so I just always thought I would follow in, his footsteps. And, I was pretty good back in my day playing, but I didn't grow. My dad's like your size, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one day my dad came to me in high school and he's like, son, you're not going pro. And I was like, what? I'm like, why would you even say that to me? That's tough, Pop. Yeah, I was like, yeah, the fuck? But he goes, and I say this all the time, he said, but son, you can go pro in life. You're going to go pro in life. So I tell people all the time, even the athletes that I know that have made it to the pros, I tell them man, we want to go pro in life because there's life after whatever sport they're playing.
Yes.
That next level, as a businessman or woman, how do we get there and
Yes.
sustain success and create generational wealth?
That's exactly correct, because a lot of people, they forget that your professional career is really short-lived when you're talking about NBA, NFL. If you're a tennis pro, you can have consistently a 15, 20-year career.
Right.
But NBA, NFL, you're really anywhere from 3 to 7 years.
7 is long, yeah.
Yeah, seven is a very successful career. So now you're like, okay, now what are you going to do with the rest of those 40 years of your life? And a lot of cats, if you're making $2 million, that's really, call it $1 million.
Yep.
You're there for 3 years.
Yep.
It's $3 million. What are you going to do with $3 million for 57 years of your life?
Well, yeah, and then you move to Brentwood next to Doc.
Yeah.
You paying $10 million, so now you in the red.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, things like that.
So I love it. So decided on sports. We're at Howard.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're majoring in media, I would assume.
Broadcast journalism, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
perfect.
Same thing, yeah.
And so then where do we go from there?
So I transferred to Howard.
Okay.
And so I wanted to hit the ground running. Actually, the story is really incredible. It's wild. So I'm at mom and dad's house. I had started doing music. I'm really good with my words. And the music actually took me pretty far. We did some really cool things in music. But my dad's like, I didn't raise you to be a rapper and, whatever.
Sound like my pops.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, it's nothing to do, So I didn't leave my mom's basement for 2 years at JUCO. I just was all in on the music, and I started partying young, so I didn't need to be in the, the clubs, nothing. And so one day my dad comes home and he's like, he's a real wild guy, he's a real, project,
Oh, okay.
Robert Taylor, he real, So he's like, motherfucker, stop playing that video game. I got you into college. But it's like midnight. So he had been drinking, him and mom went out. I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. So he wakes me up the next day and we sit down. He's like, hey, he went to Gibson's. Tom, you guys, Gibson's in Chicago.
There we go.
And so everybody knows my dad in Chicago. So this other brother walked up to him and was just like, man, they showing this brother love, and he didn't know who my dad was. So he asked him, my dad told him who he was, just, regular guy from the crib, did very well for himself.
Yeah.
They end up having dinner together. His wife, my mom, and dad, everybody sitting down. Turns out this guy had went to Howard, and he was the current president of Ebony Magazine.
Yes.
So my dad tells him, hey, my son's having a hard time getting into Howard, because at the time I had applied literally 10 times. I didn't hear a yes or a no. It was the craziest thing. And so he's like, oh, bring your somebody to meet me. I could help. They love me there. And so we scheduled a meeting, and then a week later, Michael Jackson dies. I love Michael. I'm crying like the rest of the world, Turns out this guy, a couple days before Michael died, got laid off from Ebony. So he was doing this big article on my family. He gets laid off. He has the last interview to this day with Michael Jackson.
Oh, wow.
So when they start doing the broadcast of the funeral and things like that, Anderson Cooper brought him on as a correspondent because he had some of the last communication with Mike. So he's incredible. They see him. CNN in turn hires him, and they make him the president of CNN Digital. So he writes my letter of recommendation. So he writes my letter. He brings me to the house. He plays me the final interview in full. It's 2 or 3 hours long. One of the few people that have heard it. I'm like, well, this is incredible, He's like, man, you like a nephew to me now. I got you. So he writes my letter. He writes this letter as if he's known me forever. I mean, my mom was in tears. So he sends it off to Howard. He tells me, pack your bags and you're going to D.C.
He said, it's done deal.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what?
Exactly.
Because I didn't even have all the requirements yet. I didn't have the math and the science. I'm like, wait, I packed. I'm like, man, I'm out of here. I packed literally everything in my mom's house.
I'm out.
Everything.
Yeah.
But I'm on the airplane and I remember playing the Al Pacino speech from Any Given Sunday, psyching myself up because I'm a competitor. So I was acting like I was playing the game. I'm on the airplane, rocking in the seat with my mom and dad, wow, I'm gonna get into the school. But I don't know. So I land, I go meet with the lady in the administration office, and I tell her my name. She's like, we don't have anybody by that name. Now we didn't flew, I'm like, wait.
From the crib, yeah.
So finally, the lady goes, wait. Your first name's Charles? I said, yes. They call me Chuck. She said, oh, I'll never forget, she had a BlackBerry. She said, yeah, Brian Monroe called me about you Saturday. Let me go get your student ID. I was like, wait, what? So she leaves out and she comes back and she drops the papers on the desk and she goes, so what do you think happened here? And I go, well, what happened was, and my mom knocked me under the table. She said, I said, man, what happened was I applied a bunch of times. And she said, no, we owe you an apology. They had a stack of all my applications and they just never made a decision on them. But anybody that goes to Howard will tell you the A building be backed up. It's called the Howard struggle. But I'm not knowing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got in just off his word. But she told me, she said, I have no housing. I said, cool. I had saved up all my money. I've been, I'm like, I'm good. I'm a hustler. I got money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just let me into school. They gave me my ID number and it was on. Yes. And I just started running. And so my first week there, I met this girl named Successful Brim. Shout out to Successful. She's really successful. But
she was set up to win.
Yeah, I just thought she was pretty for real, and I was like, oh man. And then I started talking to her. So I was walking her to class one day, found out we had the same class. She tells me, and I was like, well, I haven't seen you the first week. She said, well, I got a real job. I said, what's a real job? She's like, I produce at BET. And I was like, man, how can I get a job there? And she's like, easy, just talk to me. So she took me up to BET, and I got an internship with BET my second week on campus from just talking to this girl.
Yes.
And then I hated it.
Yeah.
Cause it was they was putting me through the ringer. I didn't realize intern just meant you just a high level slave, Yeah. So, but I learned a lot about hard work, and BET was where I first cut my teeth. Mm-hmm. But then I got out of there quickly. I probably stayed 2 or 3 months, and then I jumped into the sports cycle. I met this guy named Ed Hill Jr., who's like maybe the most powerful man in DC. Like, this man is like powerful more than the White House. Like, this man is different. And he changed my life. I met him. My best friend in college at the time was tight with him. And he introduced me to him. And he just like, Mr. Hill fell in love with me. I fell in love with him. And he was like, hey, just start coming to the games. And then one day he was like, hey, you talk really well. He was like, you know your shit. Like, because we would talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson. Like, my mental's different.
Yes.
So he said, man, how would you like to broadcast the games at Howard? We haven't done the games live, like, really ever, and we haven't had anybody do it in like 20 years. And next thing I know, they bought all this studio equipment like this, and then and welcome to Bird Gymnasium. Like, it just happened overnight. You know, it was crazy. So that's how I started, like, really, like, running in my sports journey.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I really, really harp on, bro, and you hitting on it, is you have, from the beginning, had a sense and a desire of exactly what it is that you wanted.
Yeah.
And so once you saw that in your mind, there was certainty.
Yeah.
There was very little doubt. You was rocking in your seat on the plane because you knew, like,
yeah, I know.
It's popping. It's about to happen right now.
I know.
And so with me, because of things that have happened as a positive, like, I like to kind of like connect everything. Is everything that we think, we bring to us.
Yes.
And you've brought it to you.
Manifest.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, my mom put me on The Secret when I was real young. My mom is always, I was going to call her the day after this, like, I just had an incredible weekend, and I was using all these mantras that she would like embed in my head as a youngster, you know. And my dad's always been about hard work, you know. He's always taught me if you work for it, like, it'll come, you know. And so I just pride myself on not letting anybody outwork me. My only, you know, enemy, or, you know, I'm only battling myself, you know.
That's exactly correct.
You know, so even when things go wrong, I don't make excuses. My high school football coach used to say, he said, excuses are the nails that build the house of failure, so don't make them. So I don't live by those. I just get better, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
Sharpen my tool.
I love it. I love it. So we work with Brian Moreau. You're now in the games. What's next? You still at Howard, and then where do we go?
So I'm at Howard, and you know, Howard doesn't have the resources that UCLA or USC have, obviously. So, I mean, the School of C was in the basement of the old hospital where Marvin Gaye was born. Like, you know, like, this is where we were going to class, you know. It was like some real East Side High type stuff, you know what I mean? Shout out to Morgan. So, you know, I mean, to the point where when we first started this, like, it was me, Shayna Calandro, Serafina Hamer, Nakia McFarland, shout out to everybody, Mr. Clemens, that got us started. We were like a little family. But a lot of the games, I would broadcast the games as the play-by-play and the color.
Oh, wow, okay.
You know, we were strapped for cash. And so, like, the first year or two, I did it literally just for the love and just to learn.
Yep.
And then we got good. And we had all this equipment and the boosters, you know, Bison Express, they started kicking money in to support us. So we started, I got to start traveling with the team. And, like, that's when I was like, okay, it got cool, you know?
Yeah.
And then what I did was, I was like, okay, I'm going to get to go on the road with the team. So every school we would travel to play, I would ask for the SID or somebody that ran like the sports department.
Yes.
And I would ask like, well, who runs like the school newspaper? And so I started to accumulate at least one writer from each school. And what I did was I created a blog, and I had all these writers contribute to the blog site. But they would like sign their names on the article, but we all would contribute under the name Elite Insiders. So what that did was that beefed up this student blog website, but I was able to go to all those local cities and call the local pro teams and get us credentialed to cover the local sports teams. So when you came to our site, we weren't just writing the articles, we got to go in the locker rooms with the actual NBA players and stuff like that. So it made us a competitor in the market. And so then I also did that because everybody that was working for me, I wanted them to be able to go use their resume as one. So if I go interview, you know, I don't know, LeBron, they get to say they did the same thing too, because we all contribute, kind of like one band, one sound.
Yes.
So that blew up. I started getting, I mean, I was really, really popular, you know, in the DC area. and really well known. And so, I would start doing hits for, local news stations and things like that. And then my senior year came and I needed an internship. So I started working at ESPN. Shout out to my bro Cole. He actually saved my job. So they hired me as a board operator. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I messed up live on air the first day we went live. Like, we had dead air. And I blamed it. He's still at ESPN, my boy Mike Callow. I blamed it on Mike Callow. Well, I didn't blame it on, but our boss, when he called the studio, he was like, hey, who did it? And I was like, I don't know who did it, but it was me. I was like,
yes.
So I thought I was going to get fired. And one of my best friends, Cole, who's my brother, now, at the time I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And he walks in the studio and he ended up like retraining me. And so every day I would tell my boss I'm an on-air talent. He would tell me to shut up and get back to work.
Yes.
And so then finally, BET was launching this new HBCU division, and they did a documentary on me my last year. And I name dropped Mr. Monroe in this piece and what he did for me. And I never, I didn't really keep up with him like I should have. So long story short, somebody at CNN saw this piece and they took it to him. So he's like, yeah, that's my guy. That's my mentee. So Brian called me one day. I was sitting on my couch and he said, did you hear about the Donald Sterling N-word Clippers controversy? I said, of course, I work in sport,
Yeah.
He said, okay, well, you have homework. He said, I want you to write an article and send it to me. I said, well, what's the article? Like, I'm like, homework?
Wow. Yeah.
He said, yeah, for CNN. He said, we want you to write what they call an op-ed. And, tell us about your experience with the N-word and growing up, So I wrote it, sent it to him. The next day, he calls me in the morning and he goes, did you see the website? I was, oh no, I was sleeping. He's like, you're number one on the website. So my article went number one on CNN. So then he goes, well, what are you doing today? He goes, do you want to be on TV? So then I asked the dumbest question in the history of the world. I said, what channel? So then he says CNN. So he's like, and I never forget it. I was actually living with my college girlfriend at the time. We were breaking up. Mm-hmm. Like, wasn't much talking going on. And she's in the shower, and I was like, hey, you got to get out the shower right now. She's like, why? I was like, I'm about to be on TV. She's like, well, you always say that. I was like, no, I was like, I'm about to be on TV. So she's like, what? And I was like, oh, you'll see later.
Yeah.
I was like, you'll see later. I didn't tell her what it was. And so, so CNN, the producers called me. They offered to send a limo. I'm like, man, I'm from Chicago. I'll get my own way there. I go in there. Obama's team was in there that day, and I'm getting the makeup. Next thing I know, I'm on with Don Lemon. Yes. And Poppy Harlow in prime time. I'm like, this is nuts. Like, I'm on prime time.
Yes.
So it was the highest high of my life. My mom and dad on the phone with Brian, and they were celebrating. I leave CNN and my car is gone. And I'm a broke. I have no bread.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, what? So I went from like, I'm on TV with Don Lemon in prime time, and my car's gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I call my dad. He's like, well, call the tow truck people. So I wait 20 minutes, and this is how I know God is real. I've never felt that high, and I've had some wins. I still don't know if I've ever felt that high in my life. And I felt so low. I was like, I don't even know if I can afford, I'm gonna have to call my dad to get money to get this out. The lady on the phone, she goes, son, we did tow your car, but it's your lucky day. I go, how am I lucky you towed my car? She said, we just moved it for you. I said, excuse me? She was like, yeah, you were in a bad zone. They moved it around the corner. I'm like, you're kidding me. So I ordered an Uber, and they moved my car like a gentleman around the corner for me. So
that's amazing.
I'm like, what? I jump in the whip. I had a drop top too. So I drive back to campus. I got the heroes walking because I name dropped Howard on the piece. So I come back and everybody was, giving me the Arsenio Hall. I was like, wow. I went to eat dinner at Ben's next door on U Street. And by the time I got back to my apartment that night, my girl wasn't there. She probably didn't want to hear me gloat.
Yeah.
Because I told you I was going to be on CNN.
Exactly.
I said TV. But then also, I had a job offer from literally every media company. Like, you name the company, they offered me a job. And then my boss, who I've been begging to let me on air, he literally goes, my office, 9 a.m. We need to talk about this CNN thing. I got an idea for you. So I go to ESPN the next day, and now they make me a Sports Center anchor, an update anchor.
Yeah.
Like, overnight. They trained me like 2 or 3 days, and I was live that Saturday. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so, from there, I stayed at ESPN for maybe the next 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. And then a guy by the name of Steve White from the NFL Network.
Yes.
He, Howard alum. He put a play together, and they offered me a deal to come join the NFL Network, and so that's the job I accepted because my whole life my goal was to get back to California, but I didn't want to just move out here like hoping and wishing.
Yeah.
And so, and the NFL is my favorite sport, and I love Steve. He's a great mentor to this day, and packed my bags and moved out here. I moved to Glendale. I didn't want to live in Culver City, but I moved to Glendale.
Culver City, man.
No,
Beautiful.
no, knock to Culver. I'm early 20s, LA. I had to be near Hollywood so I could do my thing,
I'm not mad at that.
When work was over.
I'm not mad at that.
So that's how I ended up getting out here.
I dig it. So now we're at NFL Network. We have understood the trials, tribulations, what the work will return if you put in the work intentionally, which you have done.
Yeah.
So now, where are we going from the NFL Network?
So it was, and my journey's nuts. So the whole time I was still in DC, I had went to this baseball conference. I have a professor named Ricky Clemens, who's a legend. He's a legend in the journalist space. He actually, set the standards for us. He's a lot of the reasons that Black journalists got an opportunity at the Olympics. He opened a lot of doors. So he took us on this trip to New York for a Major League Baseball conference. And I went with Serafina and Nakia, two of my closest friends who helped me build the sports network. Serafina's at ESPN to this day, and Nakia's just crushing it all over in sports. She's also the best cook ever. So I told her when I get the real M's, she gonna move to LA and be my chef. Yeah. But we go to this baseball conference, and I remember they went to her mother's home in Brooklyn to, do lady things and freshen up. And I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm gonna meet everybody here. So I stopped and talked to the Cubs, even though, we Southsiders, so I had to rock with my White Sox. But I stopped and talked to everybody. But on the way out, I saw a booth for the San Francisco Giants. And my mother and my grandfather, who passed before I was born, but he was a big baseball fan of Juan Marichal, the former pitcher for the Giants. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to stop by the booth to tell Mom I did it. It was the only Black lady, it's baseball. She was the only Black lady there that was HR. And I said, hey, the Bay is my second home. I grew up there. My mom loves Juan Marichal. She loved my resume. Her name was Leilani Gill. She said, you know what, son? If you can get to the Bay, I'll set up an interview for you. I'm like, that's nothing. Get the ticket. Mom, give me the ticket. Oakland, my second home. It was an excuse to go see Auntie anyways. I go interview. She set up a real interview in the stadium with the San Francisco Giants. And it was right after Kanye, I think, had just proposed to Kim because they still had some stuff up from that. But I met with these three people, and the second guy I met with was an exec from the team. Mm-hmm. And he just kept staring at me. And he said, so you started this site by yourself? I said, yeah. He said, so you edited this stuff by yourself? I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, so you did the voice? I said, yeah. He said, what are you doing after this? We should get lunch. But I had a flight back. I'm still working for ESPN.
Exactly.
I said, well, I got a little time. So me and my dad were literally just driving around San Francisco. This guy never called me. So my dad said, what do you want to do? I said, I got to get back to work. My dad told me, you got to get back to work. Keep your day job.
Yep.
If it's meant to be, it'll be.
That's exactly.
Man, right when I'm boarding the airplane, this guy calls me. Hey, the office got long. Let's go get that bite to eat. And I remember stopping because my mom works for the airline. So I knew but I had to get back to work. And I remember thinking, is this my life-changing moment? Do I go have lunch with this man and bet it on myself? Or do I go back to my job, and if he really wants me, he'll come get me?
Yeah.
So I got on the plane because I still need that ESPN check. The guy called me a couple months later while I had already moved to LA. Mm-hmm. And I'm already working at the NFL, and he calls me the night before the Warriors home opener, and he says, hey, some things happened with our voiceover guy. We want to try some new flavor, some real Bay flavor. They really wanted a brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So he said, can you cut this voiceover? We'll see what it sounds like. And I don't even know if I should say this, man, but Steve White is incredible, man. This man took me into the studio. Steve, don't kill me for saying this. He's a legend. He's good now.
Yeah.
Steve took me into the NFL studio and let me cut the voiceover. Because I didn't want to go, I didn't want to pay for real studio time, and I was pressed for time. They needed this right away.
Yeah.
And they put the little NFL sound on my voice and all of that, and they sent it to him. So then Paul goes, it's incredible. He goes, why don't you come up here and hear it in person? But now I'm like, man, I got a real job.
Working out.
Man, I don't know what I came up with, played hooky somehow, but I flew to Oakland the next day, And my cousin Cordell, our birthdays are coming up. We're 3 days apart, so we're more like brothers. We were raised together. He's born and raised in Oakland, like in
Yes.
Oakland, like in the trenches.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
my family is from the
East
gutter.
Oakland?
East Oakland.
Yes.
My family
Yes.
comes from the murder dust, from the lower bottoms, like from nothing.
Yes.
Like from nothing. I tell the Warriors, I just need one ticket. So they gave me one. And he the gold teeth, the dreads, what I mean? Like,
I already know.
but they
go dumb.
Yes, he going dumb. You feel me? So we get to the game and they playing the Lakers. Kobe, my favorite hooper ever. Like a tad more than Mike, and I love Mike,
Yes.
And I tell the team, I say, hey, I know I'm doing this with y'all, but I love Kobe. They're like, what? And they told this dude, Ari Glick, they said, take him down. I'm like, what? They took me and Cordell down to the court, and we sat us behind the Lakers bench.
Oh, wow.
That's the type of organization they are. So long story short, they lose the next game. They don't use me. Apparently, either Joe Lacob or somebody is superstitious. They want everything the same. So I ended up getting contracted out for the whole season. I had no idea that this team that my dad used to go take us to see when the mascot was Thunder and he was the highlight of going to the games would have this guy named Steph Curry, who is one of the greatest players ever, who had one of the best seasons ever, and we won the championship the first year. And then they were so gracious to me, they honored, because they wanted me to accept and like fully move to the Bay. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't. And Paul Hodges and Michael Leslie and the team over there, they ended up decking out my apartment in Glendale with some studio equipment like this. So when I couldn't make the home games, I would record my stuff from my apartment in Glendale. And then my schedule was so nuts because I was working full time at the NFL and also trying to figure out this Warriors thing. My dad was like, being the hustler he is, my brother Marcus was going to Mizzou for journalism, and he's an incredible writer. He said, why don't you let Marcus write the scripts? And I'll never forget, this is how I know he's a better writer than me, because one day the Warriors, they called me, they're like, man, these got really good overnight. And I'm like, yeah.
I've really been working on my skills.
This is my baby brother, you know what I mean? But then my dad, also being who he is, he goes, man, it's the Warriors, they got money. He said, tell them you have a team, your brother's on your team, and get a check for your brother. And I was like, whoa, not that, because I didn't want to lose the opportunity.
You didn't want to rock the cart, exactly.
But I had felt like I could, because they were so everybody up there is just the real deal. And so one night I told them, and they said, oh, well, we figured, because they said it went from 70 to 1,000. So then they was like, well, how much does he want? And my brother named his price, and man, we went into business together. So, which is probably my coolest moment, to be able to, work in sports with my baby brother. And then we just kept winning. The Warriors we just never lose. It was just crazy.
Yes.
It was an incredible experience.
I dig it. So, man, you really have lived the dream. This is about true manifestation and true kind of understanding of Blackwater represent. Of really seeing the dream and living it. One of the things one of my guys had talked to me about, Thomas Vu, I love this dude. I think his book comes out soon, and talked about when you know what it is that you're looking for, it's no longer a dream. You see it, and you don't get excited about it happening when things happen. It just becomes normal. And so now you're at a place where they brought you down. They're like, oh, we're going to sit you down. At the beginning, that was like, that's new to you. Like, oh my God, it's like when we go to Red Lobster, when we go to Ponderosa when we're young. Yeah. Like, that's like, oh my God, this is an amazing thing.
Right.
Now when you go out to dinner, wherever you go, it's like, yeah, I'm going out to dinner.
Right.
So when it becomes the norm, all of those miracles just become normal. They become normal. Yeah. That's your life.
Yeah.
So I want to hear really, what was the next miracle that happened from there?
And this is the Howard Network coming full circle. And it's funny that Thomas Vu says that, because I started to wonder if something was wrong with me. Like, I starting when I got into Howard, right? Like, I used to watch Stump the Yard every night on this mini DVD just because it was like the HBCU experience.
Yes.
And I was like trying to manifest Howard just hitting me back before I met Mr. Monroe.
Yeah.
And then I thought that I would have this moment where I would cry these tears of joy when I got in. And when that lady let me into school, I didn't react like that. And I was like, is God mad at me because I'm not jumping for joy? You know, like I prayed for that. I work, but it was like, oh no, that was supposed to be in my path. Like God knows there's more for me. You
Exactly.
know? Same with the war. I was like, so I keep having these moments where it's like, I think I'm gonna have this Will Smith pursuit of happiness, like down the street, you know, and it hasn't happened. But I also don't want it to happen because then I'll rest on my laurels.
Yes.
And so
correct.
I kind of did that. They got to a point with the Warriors where, we were rock stars. And so I was like, well, I could just get a job anywhere now, you know, because everybody was leaving. Some of my counterparts were doing things. A good friend of mine, Roz Gold on Wude, she's incredible. Happy belated birthday, Roz. You know, she ran off and started broadcasting at the Olympics. And my boy Franco Finn, who was the in-arena host for the team, is killing it with all these brand deals. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna step out. And then the phone didn't ring for a couple months. And I got, I was like, man, these LA bills, and now I'm like, man, Dad's like, why don't you just come back to Chicago? I'm like, I'm not coming back. Like,
No.
but I don't know what to do. So I went back to Chicago just to see the family. And we went to this White Sox game versus the Yankees. And I got an email from Marcus Matthews, one of my big mentors at Howard. He said, I got an opportunity for you. And I was like, what is it? He says, email this guy right here. He said, Maverick Carter and LeBron are looking to hire a podcast producer. So I was like, oh, what?
Interesting.
I'm hyped. But I don't even, and so I end up, going through the email process. He put in a word. One thing led to another. And I'm at LeBron and Mav's office getting interviewed for a role at Uninterrupted, their company. And I remember feeling like when I left, I felt like, oh, I killed it. Because I prepare, my dad always told me preparation makes cowards of us all. If you're prepared, it's going to show. So I'm like, I'm ready. So I walked out of there, like, we were there like an hour. I was like, I know I got it.
Yes.
And then a week later they called and they said, man, we're down to you and like 3 other people. I'll never forget it. I think I went out partying and I woke up like hungover or something, and I was on the couch and I answered the phone and I was like, oh, pop up. So he goes, we're down to you and 3 other people. And I was like, okay, so I hung up. I swear, this man Tunde St. Matthew Daniel, TD we call him. He called me back in like 40 seconds. He said, do you want to go by Charles or Chuck on your email? You got the job. But when I tell you I was down, and I get emotional thinking about it because I was down for a minute, and I cried. Right on my girlfriend's floor, because it was like, I thought of all the people that never gave up on me, and I didn't give up on myself, So I get emotional thinking about it because I was like, that's a crazy moment when it's like you work your whole life to reach a pinnacle and you feel like you fall and you don't know if you can get up, but God pull you up, and not only pull you up, he puts you on a LeBron James platform.
Correct.
I mean, I was just crying on the floor. Like when LeBron was like, Cleveland, this is for you. Like I was on the floor like, mama, like I'm back. Like,
yeah,
and so that's one of those moments where it was like, okay, I had to fight through it, but God brought me to it.
Yes.
And
Because it was always meant for you.
Yeah, it was meant for me, but I also knew I was a champion because you battle like a lot of mental stuff, especially in this city. There's a lot of pitfalls and dark times, but I knew, like, I'm still that kid from Chicago. I'm Chuck and Renee's son, and like, there's nothing that can stop me.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, man. You talk about that. It's May. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, which it was a big deal for me. My mom was manic depressive, so
that runs in my family.
Yeah, we dealt with a lot of that. And I think it's because of we as a people, Black people in particular, we've gone through so much.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't talk about it.
Yes.
We hold it inside, and that's what causes all of the issues.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
I just started therapy a year ago.
Yeah, man, therapy is great. I recommend it for everybody. My sister's a therapist. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. My sister, Crystal. She's amazing. Crystal Murdoch. Anybody in Chicago, holler at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So it's huge understanding that, and understanding as we talk about manifestation. It's one of the things that I tell people is we manifest both good and bad. And so as you talked about your mom giving you the secret, making sure that you have those positive thoughts, one of the things that we do as a family is we pray. I'm programmed a Christian, and so I am programmed with Christian beliefs, and I say programming because if I were born in China, maybe I wouldn't be Christian. So I don't have a lot of the thoughts of if you're not this, then you're wrong. It's just this is my programming.
Same.
And so we read the Bible, we pray, and then we do affirmations. And so if you start your day with I'm going to have a positive day despite things happening, because challenges will happen to everyone.
Yeah.
No one lives a perfect life. And I've had kids tell me that at the gym, the younger kids, like, dude, like your life must be perfect. You're always smiling. I'm, no, I smile despite everything happening, because
through the pain.
Exactly. Because those things, as they said back in the day, King Solomon had a ring, this too shall pass. And so no matter what,
I always say that.
Yeah. Both good and bad, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, those things, there is no good, there is no bad. It's just life. So they just keep on going. So I really want to know, like, as you, because you are such a prolific and you're so young to have so many, what I say, different lives.
Yeah, I live
to have had so many different lives at such an age. Where are you now after the Maverick Carter and LeBron situation?
Yeah. After that, I actually launched my own company. Back in 2020, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because the pandemic, I was hitting. I was like, oh man, and then that hit. The pandemic messed people like myself up, because I'm in the one lane, sports and entertainment, where like people couldn't go on the movie sets and things like that. I ended up booking the season of MTV Cribs and helping them out with talent relations, which was a nice hustle for me. But I remember like calling some of the artists and the celebrities and like trying to film around all these COVID protocols and regulations.
Yes.
And just getting creative. So I launched my company, Living Legends Group. It's incredible. I launched it with a good friend of mine, Leslie Guam, who's over at Heartbeat with Kevin Hart. My friend Ariel Dunbar, who's the head of talent over at Netflix, and a guy named Brandon Allen, who is one of the execs at Red Bull, formerly at Fuse TV. So I just copied the model that I did in college. I found 4 industry counterparts that I liked in their specific lane, and, told them let's come together and start our own production company, where we specialize in sports and entertainment, docs and films and things like that.
Yep.
But specifically with the focus on taking athletes and attaching them as EPs behind the projects, things like that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we started ripping and running and making things happen. Like I said, I came out hot, pandemic hit, lost about a year, and then started getting it all back and started, making proper connections. And then I met my current business partner, a man by the name of Les Garland, who many people know because he created MTV and VH1.
Okay, I was like, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a legend. I was just at his house last night. Shout out to Les. I call him the Garfather.
There you go. The Garfather.
Yeah, the Garfather. So yeah, I met Les, man, and I brought him in, and I met Justin Giangrande and Brian Scher from the Network Advisory.
Yep.
And I started doing some consulting over there in the NIL space, because I've always had a knack to meet the athletes early, because a lot of my close friends and counterparts over the years are some of the biggest trainers in the world. So the pipeline, I see the kids early, and I think I have a great eye for talent.
Yeah.
I was in early on. I remember thinking like Kyler Murray, somebody found this tweet years ago. I won a lot of money when Kyler Murray got drafted, because I had tweeted when he was like 13, like, I just saw the kid that's going to be the first pick in the draft one day. And I bet people that he would be. And,
Yes.
He was.
Yeah.
So I'm really good with identifying talent in the space. And then, specializing in these brand deals. We do a lot of high-level brand deals. We just did the Super Bowl, and, I closed a couple deals for some A-listers like Tony Gonzalez, Deion Sanders, a lot of Ty Gurley, a lot of big-time people at the Super Bowl.
I love it.
And I'm doing a campaign right now with DirecTV and Major League Baseball. And so we got some big names we're doing for that. That should be dropping next week. CeCe Sabathia and some other people. So I've just learned to a good friend of mine who's his brother was actually my classmate at Howard. He went to Morehouse. But shout out to Marcus Smith. He told me like 8 years ago, he's like, Chuck, you're the man. He's like, you're really gonna flourish when you learn how to monetize your relationships. And so that's what I've been specifically focusing on the last 4 to 5 years, is monetizing my relationships. And I think I've been able to do that.
Yeah, I think, as I've told you, you and I have had some conversations. You're like a younger, cooler version of me.
Nah, you cool. Doc still got the swag,
Younger,
man.
cooler version of me. And so having that, and I always, it's grace. And that's what I tell people. Like, people are always like, dude, how do you know all of these people? How are you around all these people? I was like, I have no idea. It's because I'm open and I'm not looking for anything from people. Just God puts me in the path of people, and you're able to help them in some ways. And then later on, they introduce you to someone who can help you in some ways. And it's just being open-hearted and just, it's a Midwest thing. I think it's a Midwest and Southern thing, is that we just want to help just to help.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. I tell people all the time, all my relationships are real. You know, like even when I was working at Uninterrupted, I used to tell, you know, some of my coworkers, you know, we had like little debates about who knows who. And I mean, everybody knows Chuck. Like I know the whole world. But the reason I know the whole world is because I never asked for nothing, and I'm just genuine. You know, I've got friends, some of my closest friends' fathers are the literal GOATs in the industry. Like the literal, they built Hollywood, you know? But I don't see them like that. I just see them as
humans.
As humans, but also as just my friends, you know? And some of my friends have gone on and that I grew up with have turned into, you know, the GOATs. We didn't know that. At some point, you're like, oh, so-and-so could go to the league or do this, that, and the third. But, like, those are just my friends.
Yes.
And I still treat them like that. You know, I told somebody the other day, we just closed the deal with Todd Gurley. And, you know, he's a brother to me. And I always tell Todd, I said, this is back when he was, you know, Offensive Player of the Year. I used to tell him, I'm like, man, I love Todd. I love his whole family. I said, he's going to be my brother, whether he's with the Rams winning Super Bowls or nobody's checking for him.
Yeah.
Because I don't, you know, like, I'm not that kind of person. I'm about what's in the soul of a man or a woman, you know? And as long as your spirit is in alignment with God and you're trying to do the right thing and help me grow, that's what I'm about. Because I have my shortcomings, you know?
Yes.
And I can take accountability for my actions and things that, you know, may not always go as well, but I want the people around me to be the people that are letting me know that. Like, I don't need a praise team around me all the time. Like,
I love that.
I can't get better that way.
Yeah, I love that. So, as we close out, I really want to thank you for being on the show, man. Like, you have dropped some pearls, some true pearls. What would you leave for the people that tune in, that are in those places that we talk about, those dark places, and they're like, man, I really want to give it up, or I don't know what's next? What would you tell them?
I would tell people to find your passion and make it your purpose.
I love that.
And what I mean by that is find something to live for, find something to die for.
Yes.
You know, like, my best friend committed suicide when I moved to LA. Like, I was here only 3 weeks. And it's something that I think about every day. Part of the reason I started therapy, you know. I'm from Chicago, man. I got a lot of friends in them graves, you know.
Yeah, we all do.
You know, but I do it for them, you know, because the body's just a shell, you know. We'll see them again, you know.
Correct.
And so that's how I live my life, like, to honor them. You know, my best friend, Matt Brown, he was like the same person I am. So every time I do something good in sports, I look up and I know it was him, because it's like he's still here, you know. So I want his mother and father and his brother and sister to know, like, every time Chuck wins, he wins, you know. And then I look at my 4-year-old daughter, Gia. She's incredible. She's already like me times 10, you know. And like, it's like I would die for my daughter, you know. But and one day we all got to go. But I know that one day when I do leave this earth, I'm gonna leave my daughter with my last name. You know, and that's all I got. So I have to do everything to make sure that my name is good. And so every day I put in the work to make sure that when they think of the Waltons, I continue the legacy that my dad already started, and I finished the job. Like Kobe would say, the job's not done. So I just want people to love themselves and do something for other people. It can't be about you. You know, go help a young kid.
Yes.
Go help a homeless person. Spend time. Don't just give that person money. Talk to that person. Ask them their story, because you never know, that could go a long way in their life, and it'll help yours. So absolutely. I just want people to know that I'm just about peace and positivity.
There we go. Where can they find you?
Instagram Chuck, at Instagram Chuck, on Twitter, Don't go on my Twitter. I'm just retweeting all the Drake stuff right now anyways. But yeah. Shout out to the boy and the OVO team on that victory. We up. We up 100 points. But yeah, they can follow me on LinkedIn, Chuck Walton, and on Instagram at Instagram Chuck, which is what most people call it. They'll see me in the streets like Instagram Chuck. Like it's taking on like its own moniker.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and then stay tuned. My client Bianca Bethune is starring in Bad Boys 4 with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. We got that dropping June 7th. So the movie's coming, premiere's coming up. Definitely support us. Shout out to Will and Martin. And shout out to my brother and my daughter. I appreciate you for having me, Don.
Yes, love.
Love.
Thank you for tuning in. Built to win. Always remember, we are all built to win.